Following Christ is not for the faint of heart. Striving to be a kingdom man isn't about packing up and taking a vacation. It's about getting your mind right, your gear packed, and heading into war. It's more important now than ever before to stand up for what's right and just in the eyes of the Lord and seek His truth. This ain't a cruise ship, fellas. It's a battleship. So buckle up and get ready for the truth, the uncomfortable truth. Hello and welcome back to the show. We're going to hop right back in with Cory Miller. Sean's going to open us up in prayer real quick.
Dear God, just thank you for this day. Thank you for these men. Thank you for Cory, our guest today. And Lord, just help us to shine light into the lives of our listeners and just exhibit the love of Jesus. And Lord, just help us to have a great rest of our weekend. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. So we're here with Cory, who is the director of event presentation, basically the executive producer for game day entertainment in the stadium. If you hadn't listened to the last podcast, hop back over there and listen to the one previous so you can catch up. So we've talked about Cory's kind of his career path, how he got to where he is now, some details on that. But what we want to dive into right now is the Cowboys just had their Thanksgiving Day game, which is it's like a dadgum Super Bowl. I mean, that's how they prepare for it as far as on Cory's end. I'm sure the players do too. But it's a massive game. This last one was the most, Cory told me this, the most watched game regular season game in the NFL since 1990.
Wow.
That's how big the Cowboys are and how many people watch them. So, Cory, that's not stressful at all when you're putting the event on, the presentation of the event, right? Walk us through your day of this past Thursday in that Thanksgiving game.
So Thanksgiving is obviously the one unique one that we get every year, and it's a special one because it obviously we're spending Thanksgiving with a lot of people that have made that a tradition for themselves as fans to show up to those games every year. And so we have a partnership with the Salvation Army, and the Thanksgiving game every year is the Red Kettle Kickoff Concert. So the planning for that starts, months before that game. So we're, finding an artist and getting all those details worked out. And then about 2 weeks prior, we really start digging into every detail. Stages are being built, months in advance because it's different for every year's artist. And then starting on Tuesday, we start kind of our sound checks and rehearsals for that. And then Wednesday is our main rehearsal with the artist, and then Thursday is show day. And it's unique from a production standpoint in that I've also got a football game to produce. And so we have a group that comes in every year. There's two groups that come in every year to kind of play a part in that production, and kind of working as a massive team of people to produce a 20-minute halftime that is unique. Most halftimes are 13 minutes, and every year for us Thanksgiving's 20, and it's actually a fun stress, as crazy as that may sound, just because it's unique, and I think for me that's what keeps me engaged in this job, just transparently, is that there's always something different.
Challenge.
Always a challenge.
But fun stress. That's pretty cool.
It's a fun stress. It's a challenge, but I like to say challenges are just opportunities to do something awesome. So yeah. It's you look at the different artists, different needs of that artist, different needs from the networks, because that's a live, on-air performance. So lots of hurdles that go through that, but it's amazing. It's one of those very fulfilling things that when it's all said and done, it's like, wow, we somehow pulled that off, when lots of questions going in of like, man, but that's why we do.
Real quick on the artist. So are you having to reach out to, like, Luke Combs was y'all's guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Are you the one having to reach out to this person? And do they have a second part of that question? Is do they have like these stipulations that they place on you, or are y'all the ones saying this is how it's going to be done?
Well, so it's a collaborative effort. There are there are parameters that go into it. I don't necessarily reach out to the individual artists. I do have someone on my staff that is a part of that group that's reaching out to. I mean, we collectively put options out there of who we think would be, a good act. But when you get to like the vetting of it, it's a 3-part vet, right? So Salvation Army has to vet that because that person is representing them during that concert. The network has to vet that to make sure that, obviously, if you can get past the Salvation Army part, everybody else should be good. But then it's the NFL, and then the Cowboys are all, vetting those folks.
So the Salvation Army has a huge say-so.
Yes.
And so if they didn't like Luke Combs, they'd be like, no.
It's not so much about it's the public perception and their backgrounds. Are they move in the right direction that would represent their.
So
makes sense.
Nobody threw Morgan Wallen out for the halftime show just because it was stuff that like he wouldn't have been one.
There's there's a lot that and it's not always that someone, obviously none of us are spotless, so it's
right.
It's you try to find someone who is doing the right things.
Sure.
How far in advance? How far in advance is that decision for the halftime? I mean, best case scenario.
Best case,
worst case.
Best
maybe.
case is a month out, maybe a little more. Worst case is
3 days.
2-3 weeks.
Okay. So if you get down to 2 weeks, you're like, crap.
Here we go.
This is going to be because you've got stages, you got all these things you said that are customized for that individual or that
the stage is custom, but we don't wait for an artist to build that stage.
That makes sense.
It's so interesting because I don't think anybody ever thinks about really what goes into all that.
Sure.
I mean, it's super cool.
So
whenever you sit back and you see that happen, in a 20-minute halftime show, you have nobody has a clue that, hey, 6 weeks ago we started preparing for this
There's
thing.
a lesson in there, a big lesson.
Yeah.
How many people on your final walkthrough on Wednesday? You said you had 2 other groups that come in, roughly.
Well,
how many people are working together to do a run through to be sure that it's all kosher?
So you got about 200 stagehands that are and the trick of that. So there's probably 300 people that are involved, but it's timing too, right? Like you got to get on in a certain amount of time, you got to get off in a certain amount of time, and so it's everybody's got to work hand in hand and very, very coordinated
efficiently.
How many halftime shows in the NFL are televised every year? Is there just 2?
Thanksgiving and
the Super Bowl? There's just 2, and you have one every year.
Every year.
Can we be on the stage crew next year?
Sure.
I bet that's a cheap paying job that they'll take all they can get.
We'll do it for free.
That's right. I'll clean that helmet.
Hey, guys, if you see them, like what they're doing, they are running, pushing these stage materials. And like, as far as from Cory's perspective, if they go over, their team gets fined, correct?
Yeah.
Per second. Oh, we're not going to talk about that.
There's
Everybody
a lot
got
of intensity.
Every team got fined.
The fines by the network?
Fines by the NFL.
Okay. Wow.
Some kind of repercussion. I
tell
don't
you
know
about
all
that
the
later.
details of that.
He didn't want to talk about
Yeah,
that.
we're not going to talk. We're not going to talk about that. So you get through, you get all that planned, you get it worked out. Game day, we're waking up at 7 o'clock, getting to the stadium, 5 o'clock, and what does your game day look like from the time that you get there on game day?
So if it's let's call it a noon game, I get there roughly 4:45, 5 in the morning. I try to get there, a little while before everybody else, just so I can sit.
Okay, hold on. So you're walking into this stadium quite possibly as the first person there.
Not the first person, but
close.
First one of my staff. Yeah, I mean,
That's got to feel pretty cool. I mean, how massive that thing is. I've never been in it when there's not 90,000 people.
Do you have your own parking spot?
No.
Oh,
I have a close parking
I mean, when
spot.
you're 445, you probably park as close as you want to. I hope.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But you get there, I get there early because I want to have that time to sit, and it's funny. Like noon games are tough because it's so early when I'm having to get there. But it started all the way back from Texas Stadium. Every game day morning, like I would talk to my dad, we would pray, go to the stadium. Now Mom has filled that role, but it's that time for me to dial in and try, because of the stressful atmosphere that happens at kickoff. It's imperative that I have that time to just turn off and just try and get my mind in a place that, I always pray, let me use words that build up and not tear down, because it's very easy in those stressful moments to spiral, and they happen inevitably every single game. But it's really, for me, that just being intentional with the things that I'm doing, and intentional with, thinking before I react to something. And when I was younger in this role, I was pretty reactive, and what I found, and there were others in other roles before me that were very reactive, and I could see how that created an environment in the control room where, we used to kind of equate it to like running on a banana peel, and inevitably that banana peel is going to make you slip in a game and you're going to fall down. But the goal is to stay on it as long as you possibly can, because that's just going to carry the momentum of positivity, in that environment. But live entertainment, there's no do-overs. So we have to move on. Something happens in a game that's not ideal, we have to move on. And so,
give us an example, because I would guess to most people there's some things that oh man, that was not good, where I may not ever catch it. Like, is it something where you didn't pan to where you needed to pan, or is it bigger than that?
Those derail me sometimes too. But and look, I'll say, in my perspective, and everybody else around me would tell you this, I would never say I've had a perfect game ever, and that's just because if one thing is not to plan, then there it goes. Yeah. It's usually, it's things for the most part that others wouldn't notice. Okay. But my goal is to create the tightest game that I possibly can, and that is from element to replays to camera shots, and having those happen exactly the way that they are and exactly at the time that they're supposed to happen. And you got 30 people that are making those button pushes, for a lack of better terms, and so it just doesn't happen that way. So
I think real quick, Cory, for the listener, when you're watching the game on TV, they are producing that game for you. There's people in there, there's announcers, there's people that are running the replays. They're going, hey, camera 1, camera 2, 2 to 1, 1 to 7. All right, right here, hold here, blah, blah, blah. Okay. That is it's essentially the same presentation that Cory is giving in the stadium, plus all the entertainment aspects of what he does too. So when you're watching a game, you can understanding what he does is basically it's the product that's put on the TV, but to me it's a different level of what you have to do, because you have to incorporate a real true fan experience inside your entertainment value as well.
Right.
So he's got you really operate two things at once in the grand scheme. Was what I'm seeing on my TV or what I'm seeing in the stadium.
Well, what you're seeing, the easiest way to kind of tie that together is when the broadcast goes to a 2-minute and 20-second TV timeout, I've got 2 minutes and 20 seconds to fill with fan engaging content. Mm-hmm. So that's the other piece, where in a broadcast they're just rolling commercials, getting ready to come back and do whatever else they're going to do for the actual broadcast. Whereas when we go to timeout, we're going straight into 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
How many 2-minute and 20-second stretches are there typically? that you have to fill?
So there's 4 breaks per quarter. So the first quarter has 4 total breaks, and then the second quarter, fourth quarter have essentially 5 because you've got the 2-minute warning. So I guess is that 19, 18?
A lot of downtime.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
that's multitasking on another level.
There's where that
in my
AD&D
head.
kicks in, doesn't it?
Well, it's like the thing about it is it's not only like where it helps me to stay engaged is I may have a break, right? Like the first break is I would consider an offensive break. So if we're on offense, this break works perfect because it's kind of, maybe showing a community feature followed by maybe a fan cam followed by, something else. And so if we're coming back on defense, that doesn't necessarily play there because I want coming out of that break to re-engage the fans from a football perspective. So I need to switch some breaks around. So usually after kickoff, my script changes probably 80% just as shuffling things around to make it intentional for what we need the fans to do and when we need them to do it.
Wow, that's cool.
Very
Really cool.
All right, so we've walked through like your game day prep. You're coming in at 4:45. You wake up. Your mom calls you, or you call her. You pray, get your mind right. We get to the stadium. As your staff start coming in, how are you mentally preparing them for what's about to happen?
So we get there, and so for a noon kick, 6 a.m. is their call time, and then 6:15 we do a crew meeting with all of the crew up in the control room area. And we walk through the day. We walk through, all of the different elements that are happening. Most of my crew has been there for a bunch of years. The majority of our crew on a game day is freelance, so I don't have daily communication with them. So it's imperative for me to kind of communicate the importance of different things that may be for that game and kind of paint the picture for them of what they're about to go through when we rehearse prior to the game. And then once we get through that meeting, then we go in the control room, we rehearse. So if it's a halftime, we'll have, a halftime rehearsal, then we'll have a cheerleader rehearsal, and then we're coordinating, typically we have a 30 to 30-yard flag. So I've got, 70 to 100 military that are coming in that are going to rehearse that with our anthem. And then once we get that, I try to always leave ourselves 30 minutes before doors open for everybody to just step away, catch their breath, and then we get back to it, when doors open. Because for us, it doesn't just start when kickoff happens. It starts, 3 hours, 4 hours prior to kick. So our plazas on a noon game open 3 hours, and then for all other games 4 hours. So that's a show in itself that's happening outside the building. And then once doors open 2 hours prior to kick, we are producing a full pregame show inside the building. And then obviously roughly 28 minutes prior to kickoff, we start our main show for the in-stadium crowd.
That sounds like a lot.
Yes.
There's a lot going on there.
It sounds like a amazing job, but it sounds like a job that, like you said, Cory, you got passed up a few times. Maybe you wouldn't have been prepared.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, it's like how much practice and how much knowledge would you have to have about the goings on of how everything operates before you step into that operational role?
Can you imagine walking in the Cowboy Stadium and then all of a sudden that's your job and somebody just throwing this in your lap and be like, "Hey, Sean,
No, man,
you got to do this," or "Obi, this is your job today." It would be a tragedy. I mean, it would just fall apart.
I would go, who's been here the longest?
right? Yeah. Tell me what to do. Yeah,
But I
we've been
also
promoted.
look at that as like that 1,000,000,000% was God laying those steps out for
Sure.
me of like,
Sure.
yeah, man, you can be defeated that maybe you got looked over, whatever, but it was like the provision of, yeah, this was going to be a train wreck, and it would have set you up for failure to fall on your face, and then what? So
Sure.
I can look back and not have not one doubt that it happened when it was supposed to happen.
awesome.
And when it's time to do something else, I'm confident that the good Lord will direct that too.
All right, so for our listeners, I know you heard all this good stuff, and in the back of your head, you're just thinking, I wonder if he meets any of the players.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Do you have any, just to answer our listeners, do you have any interaction with players? If so,
Yeah, I mean, over the years, a lot. We do a media days every year where we have all the players come through different stations that we're shooting our intro videos, open videos, all of those things. These last 2 years obviously have been different because we haven't had those opportunities because of the different protocols that are in place. But the guys are great. They and what's funny is, like, back in the day, like your Jason Wittens of the world, early on he was fine doing that, and we didn't always do that, before probably maybe 3 years into the new stadium. But then some of those older vets, like, they're like, oh, here we go again. I got to go run through stations all day long. These newer guys, I think, have a different appreciation for their visibility, and so they're all for it. They love, and it's funny because we would have, intro videos that we would shoot back in the day, and guys would just complain about, oh, here we go again. And then 2 weeks later, after they see the intro video on the video board, they're like, man, why wasn't I in it? And I'm like, because you complained and didn't want to shoot it. It's like we can work this out. You just got to work with me. But yeah, man, it's different, a different interaction, right? Like, it's not like I'm best friends with these guys, but there definitely have been some guys over the years that I've gotten to know pretty well, and
That's
So of everybody, oh, sorry.
I think you're going to ask the same question.
Yeah, of everybody that you've had interaction with, who do you feel like is one of the most salt of the earth, people, just over the years?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, somebody just super down to earth and just you felt like we're super grounded.
probably Jason Witten was probably
Really?
that guy.
He seems like that type of guy.
He definitely is. I mean, he was all about business, but he also understood just like what his
demeanor,
but the public perception of him, being the all-American guy, he was the same on the backside. Like, he was the same in the locker room. He was a teacher in the locker room. He was just a great guy.
That's awesome.
All right, so you obviously have a responsibility to a lot of people, right? A lot of people that you work for that are over you, and a lot of people that work for you, game day or not game day or whatever. So every day, what are you doing to mentally prepare in your relationship with the Lord in order to, what did you say your prayer was? Use your words to
build up and not break down
and not tear down. So how are you building into other people? Just some practical advice, using the Bible and the Holy Spirit and God's wisdom.
I think the biggest thing is to be encouraging, because I always look at people of like, man, you have no idea what that person, someone comes in super grumpy. I can look at that from a standpoint of, man, like, this is going to make a game day tough or a work day tough, but you have no idea what that person went through, the day before, or that, what they're dealing with in their personal lives. And so for me, it's very important to be as encouraging as I possibly can to those folks, whoever they may be. And I always tell my full-time staff, like, that are overseeing any other group, I was like, look, it's our job to get these people to do a job for us. So approach every day and every interaction that way, in that, man, like, if you go hard at somebody all the time, or someone's not performing at their level that they should be, man, think about that they may be going through something difficult on the back end. And so if you just come at them hard, that's not fixing anything. That's not going to build up. That's definitely going to tear down. And so, I think for me, the biggest, just I guess, position that I take in everything that I'm doing is do my, and I don't always do it well, but is to build people up and encourage people. And in our world, it's so important because there's so many people that you're dealing with, that so many different things could be going on in their lives that you have no idea about. And so for me, it's just that big encouragement of uplifting people and hugging people's necks, and the things that we should just do as Christians of being something. Maybe you're the only Jesus somebody sees. Now, I'm not always that perfect reflection of that, and but it's something that I definitely strive to be. Is like, man, they may have no encouragement in their life from any angle. Maybe just be that person.
That's awesome.
That's good, man. We're going to end right there. Cory, thanks so much for being here and joining us. You guys out there and gals listening, be aware, and let's think outside of ourselves today and see people for maybe the circumstances that they're in. Even if we don't know, maybe if we could just look outside of ourselves and understand, like Cory was saying, they may be going through something that's terrible right now. They may be going through the holidays and not have family members that they've, a mom and dad or a brother or sister, or just struggling in some area. And the kindness that we can show them will reflect Jesus. Appreciate you being here. If you would hit that like, share, subscribe, all those buttons. Help us reach more people for Jesus. Go out and kick the day in the face, and we'll catch you on the next one.